This podcast contains adult themes, sexual content, and strong language. Listener discretion is advised.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which this podcast is recorded and produced, the Jagera and Turrbal peoples, and the traditional owners of the lands wherever this podcast is being heard. We honour the long and rich history of storytelling on country and pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past and present. Sovereignty was never ceded.
Welcome to the Historical Romance Review, the podcast where an avid romance reader and a reluctantly romantic historian chat all things romance fiction. I'm Amy, the historian.
And I'm Sarah, the romance reader.
Hi, cutie.
Hi, nerd.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Feeling very excited for today's episode.
Me too.
Yes, although still riding the hide from, if you caught our last episode, our last State of the Field, just riding the high from the fact that, like, my ultimate guy ended up winning. I mean,
he is the ultimate, but no, we're not surprised. In case you missed it, do you want to tell us who this ultimate man is if you haven't listened to State of the Field? Last episode on our State of the Field, we did a battle of the book boyfriends, and we pitted all of the MMCs from the 10 books that we've reviewed, not including the one we're doing today, because this is number 11. Mm-hmm. We pitted all of those against each other in a bracket-style game to find out who was the ultimate book boyfriend from that crew of men. And we predicted the winner from the very start.
We really did.
And that was what happened. Who was it? Tell us.
It was Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy.
Oh my God.
From
Pride and
Prejudice. Of Derbyshire. In Pride and Prejudice, yes. Although Felix from This Summer Will Be Different did give him a run for his money. There was many a heated discussion about that. But yeah, no, I think we decided that, like, you know, if they appeared before us, right, Felix, we'd both get with Felix. If they appeared before us,
we'd pick Felix because modern man.
Yeah.
However, in the whole of romance literature, Darcy just wins out. He's pretty incredible. So riding the high from knowing that, you know, what we already knew deep in our hearts.
Which is that, you know, Jane Austen writes the perfect men.
Yeah. And we teased.
We teased.
Off the back of that, we teased what this episode was going to be about. Did any of you guess?
Huh? Let us know.
Can you shout it out? I can't hear you.
More Austen.
More Austen.
We are...
Yeah, a little bit of a... Just Jane Austen.
We are delving back into the world of Regency romance, and because she really does write the best men.
Yeah.
And today we are reviewing Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen.
Gorgeous.
And also very topical, right? Because there's a new adaptation coming.
Yes. With Daisy Edgar Jones.
Daisy Edgar Jones, George Mackey. Yeah. I know barely any of these people except some of, like, obviously I know Daisy Edgar Jones. Yes. I know the woman who's playing Mrs. Dashwood. It's Claire from Outlander.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Katrina Balfe.
Yeah, Balfe. And then Fiona Shaw is Mrs. Jennings, icon.
Okay.
And you would totally recognise her. She's Aunt Petunia in the Harry Potter series.
That's what I was thinking. I was pretty sure.
She's just in, like, literally everything.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
I don't appreciate all these other young people. This is just me showing my age. Herbert Nordrum as Colonel Brandon.
No idea who that is.
I'm sorry. If it's not Alan Rickman.
If not,
out.
Hopefully many of you were familiar with what year was it? 1990 something.
1996? 1993?
Something like that.
I should know that.
It is the
1995
quintessential adaptation of Sense and Sensibility, starring Kate Winslet and Emma Thompson, screenplay written by Emma Thompson.
Oscar award-winning screenplay.
It's incredible. It's so good. And yes, Alan Rickman, R.I.P. He starred. Well, he did star, I guess, but he was Colonel Brandon, and he's just pretty iconic in that role.
He's so iconic.
And you have Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant is Edward Ferrars, and then also, like, just talk about them just hanging out with their pals, basically, because then Hugh Laurie is Mr. Palmer.
Oh my goodness.
And
it was just like that British set.
Yeah. And a lot of them went to uni together. Like Emma Thompson and Hugh Laurie were really good pals with, like, Rowan Atkinson and Stephen Fry from and Kenneth Branagh, who she was married to for a little bit. But this is also where she met her now husband, Greg Wise, who played
I didn't know that.
Willoughby.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is kind of cute because, like, obviously she's an amazing actor, so she doesn't let too much on. But the whole time that I'm watching that adaptation, and Willoughby's in love with, you know, Emma Thompson's character's sister. And the whole time I'm like, you guys are falling in love
as you're making this movie. That's pretty incredible. Yes. So, I mean, yes. This new adaptation of Sense and Sensibility, I think rightfully so, many Austen fans are a little bit uneasy or a bit wary of new adaptations, because there was a particular adaptation that came out 2-3 years ago. Something ridiculous. That was horrendous, just like a truly horrendous adaptation.
The 2022 adaptation of Persuasion, it was fucked.
Like, it's terrible. They just modernized it so much that it was unrecognizable.
They just butchered it.
Yeah.
They didn't even modernize it. They just butchered it. It was an awful story. And it sucks because I like Dakota Johnson and I love Cosmo Jarvis, who played Captain Wentworth. And it had some great actors in it, and I just can't fucking stand what they did to it. It's disgusting. So then obviously they had the Pride and Prejudice mini-series that came out recently, which I haven't watched because, like, whatever. But I will say I did watch the trailer for the new Sense and Sensibility, and I am, you know, a bit more positive about it.
Great.
It looks good. And yeah, it's a great story. It's such a good story. So I think it does well to be translated into film, particularly. I don't think it needs a miniseries. There's not as much plot. But yeah, so I am excited.
When does it come out?
It comes out, I think, in the UK and the US in September, and it comes out in Australia in October.
Okay, great. Well, so perfect timing. We've read this. We've read Sense and Sensibility. We're going to review it, and then we've got a couple months to wait for this new adaptation, which means we can watch the 1995 Emma Thompson adaptation a billion times.
Many a time,
before then, just to really stock up on what is one of the best adaptations.
Yeah. And so we're giving you your homework as well, right? You need to read the book, listen to this podcast, watch the 95 film, and then watch the 2026, and kind of have that as like a little suite of things for you to dive into.
Should we dive in right now?
I think that we should, yeah. So obviously this is our slightly different version of the podcast. Normally we read a lot of contemporary modern romance fiction, and then every now and then we dip into a historical fiction or a romance that's historical in the canon of romance. And as we said for our Pride and Prejudice review episode, Jane Austen is an icon in the genre.
Yeah.
Although sometimes doesn't always feel like a classical romance. So it'd be interesting to see what we talk about today. But yeah, we're going to do the same thing that we always do. Sarah is going to give us a general overview of the plot, spoiler-free as much as possible. Before we then get into a more spoilerful section. So, Sarah, how would you describe this book or recap it for someone who's maybe thinking about diving in?
Hasn't read it, or perhaps has read it or seen the movie but is hazy on the details. So this is a book written by Jane Austen, as we've already said, set, I believe, in the early 1800s.
Yes.
Late 17, early 18. It depends what kind of when she wrote it, but yeah.
It's published 1811. Yeah. So, and she doesn't, sometimes she uses clear markers in the book, like in Pride and Prejudice, for example, the Napoleonic Wars are going on, which is 1805 to 1813 or something like that. In this, there's less. So it's Misk, early 19th century, probably 1810s around the time that she's publishing it. Yeah, or late 1790s.
Yeah. That's when it's set in England, and Sense and Sensibility follows this family of women, the Dashwood women. We've got Mrs. Dashwood, the eldest daughter, Eleanor, who is 19 years old at the start of the novel. We have the next daughter, Marianne, who's 16, 17, then in this novel, and then Margaret, the 13-year-old. So these four women, it follows basically their story, but I think we've got a pretty clear main character in Eleanor, and then kind of a cast of characters around her. Basically, it's not super obvious that Eleanor's the main character, but I think it's fair enough to say that she's probably our closest thing we get to a female main character. So we've got Mrs. Dashwood, who's the second wife of Mr. Dashwood, and unfortunately at the very beginning of the book she becomes his widow. He passes away, and on his death, the property that they all lived in, which was called Norland Park, is passed down, entailed to his son from his first marriage. So the girls, Eleanor, Marianne and Margaret's half-brother, John Dashwood, he receives the estate and the living from it with his wife, Fanny. And their father, the girl's father, Mrs. Dashwood's late husband, before he dies, he tells John Dashwood to provide for the girls. He couldn't put any money away for them, basically. There's a tiny bit, but really not much, and basically just says, please provide for them. Please look after them. But he doesn't put any money to it, doesn't put a money amount to it, and John Dashwood and Fanny weasel their way out of, in their own minds, they weasel their way out of providing any real living for them, and end up having the girls and Mrs. Dashwood stay at Norland Park for about 6 months after Mr. Dashwood dies, and then they basically kick them out. And send them on their way with really very much, not at all much to live on. No. They end up being invited to live in a cottage at a property called Barton Park, which is kind of owned by Sir John Middleton, who is like a distant relative somehow. I can't exactly remember.
Yeah, he's some kind of cousin or something of Mrs. Dashwood. And he's sort of like, he is on the grapevine that they need a place to live. And so
he's like,
writes to her and is like, hey, there's a cottage that's like, it's small, but it's comfy. It's on my park.
And you
like,
guys
you'd be
can
so welcome
stay.
to rent it. Like, come hang out. And she's like, thank you so much.
Thank you, that would be great. So they all go out there, and honestly, they're relieved because living with John and Fanny is a nightmare.
Yes,
they're horrible and awful. And so they're like, okay, great, we can leave. And so they go and live in Barton, and then from there they meet a whole bunch of people, end up going to London and having lots of different adventures. So I think that's probably a good basis for the start,
like the beginning
of the book. And then maybe just some of the other characters that they're going to meet we can talk about.
And I just think that, like, I guess it's just about this family in these circumstances kind of finding a new way of living, and then the kind of tension and the excitement comes for both the two older sisters in that in this period of time while they're still living with John and Fanny, they meet Fanny's brother, Edward. Who Eleanor develops feelings for, and we're pretty sure he has feelings back for her. And so when they're suddenly cast out and have to move to Devonshire, that's like this, like,
what's going to happen?
What's going to happen here? Because we were kind of in love with each other. And
but they haven't formed any actual attachment. Like, there's been no engagement. There's been nothing, like,
nothing's
to
been said out loud, but it's all these vibes. And so that's kind of a big part of Eleanor's story moving forward, is that she's fallen in love with this man. She's pretty sure he's in love with her too, and now they've had to move to Devonshire, and it's just like, am I ever going to see him again? And for Marianne, the middle sister, she's, you know, young, she's headstrong, she's like ready to fall in love, and when they move to this new place, there's like an aging old bachelor.
There's an old man
of 35 in his grave, called Colonel Brandon, who's very grave and serious. And, you know, her neighbours are just like,
oh my goodness, ridiculous.
Bored rich people who are just like very jolly, and they're like, oh my God, he's totally in love with you. You should totally marry him. She's like, ugh.
He's horrible.
And then enter a young, dashing man called Mr. Willoughby.
Mr. Bill.
Who,
Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill. Mr. Willoughby. Who, after Marianne has a little stumble down a hill when she's out walking,
he carries her home.
Yeah, he picks her up and rescues her and kind of brings her home. And so she obviously instantly falls in love with him because he's the man of her fantasies. And so that's kind of like the beginnings of the rest of the plot, the romance plot, is like there's these two men that are kind of around but not really around. And as the title suggests, the two sisters have very different approaches to sharing their feelings, to just treating people in general. And so we get this really interesting side-by-side comparison of how Eleanor and Marianne navigate this journey of like being in love and then kind of just being victims of circumstance and having to move and do all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's pretty good spoiler-free.
Yeah.
True.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about Jane Austen and the world she was writing in and how she wrote Sense and Sensibility. For those of you who missed it, the Pride and Prejudice episode, Amy goes pretty in depth, in deep detail. It's a two-parter, that episode, because we had so much to say on Pride and Prejudice. But go back and listen to that if you want a bit more of an overview of some more detail of Jane Austen's life and more about her other books as well, and like how they were written, the order, and all that kind of stuff. So without covering too much of what was covered in that episode, because they can go and listen to that, tell us a little bit more about Jane Austen.
Yeah, so obviously, like you've probably heard her name before, she is an icon. She's one of the greatest writers of all time. She's English. She was born in 1775 and she died in 1817 at age 41.
It's crazy.
She never married. And she was writing across her whole life. Like, she wrote as a small child, she wrote as a teenager, and then she wrote all of her major novels before the age of 22, but she wasn't published until the last 5 or 6 years of her life, just about 35, 36, which is extra funny if, you know, Marianne being like, oh my God, your life is over at 35, and that's when all of Austen's
when she started getting published, yeah.
So what's really cool is that Sense and Sensibility is her first published novel. It's published first, it's her debut. It's published in 1811. And yeah, I think what's widely known about Pride and Prejudice, which is the more kind of famous one, is that it was called originally First Impressions, and she wrote versions of it that were like shorter stories or like little things. Sense and Sensibility was the same. She originally had a working title of Eleanor and Marianne, so just the sisters' first names, and she wrote it kind of in short story versions, and then there's anecdotes even from Jane's family that she wrote it as like a series of letters as well, in little installments for them. She used to then read out little installments like at family parties. So it's the first published. It was possibly written around the same time that Pride and Prejudice was written. She was kind of working on both of them. She would then put one of them down and work on the other. And I mean, I mentioned that because there's some similarities perhaps in some elements of the plot, and because Pride and Prejudice is then published immediately after Sense and Sensibility, it's the next one in 1813. It's really hard not to compare them, you know.
Of course.
So yeah, it's sort of interesting of thinking that is Pride and Prejudice a copy of Sense and Sensibility? Is Sense and Sensibility a testing ground for Pride and Prejudice? Actually, they were both being kind of written at the same time, and they both had maybe about 10 to 15 years of warm-up in various forms.
Before they were even published in this form.
As like teenage Jane is working on certain characters and certain scenes, and there's lots of really interesting evidence and anecdotes of her even like using different names and things like that. Like, I think there's like Edmund Steele is the name of Edward before he's Edward Ferrars, and then there's like so all this kind of stuff. So I think that's really cool to think of, but in the canon, it's published first.
Yeah, wow.
It's a raging success.
Oh, for sure.
It's published anonymously.
Yeah.
As I said last time, she's just published under a lady by a lady, and then her name is sort of not really revealed until much later in her life, although the story is that people who knew her knew that it was her, and people in the know knew her name. Just like Pride and Prejudice, it's been adapted into numerous films, television series, spin-offs, and modern retellings. I'd say it's probably equally beloved as Pride and Prejudice. It's considered a masterpiece.
Oh, it is.
And I think, one thing I will say before we get into the too deep stuff is, like, I think it's a better character study of individual people. It's sort of, there's less plot happening, but there's more in-depth character study. And so it's often studied in literature courses and like all that kind of thing. And it's it's one that really goes really deep into the characters. But yeah, I think that's probably all I need to say about it.
Brilliant.
The context is very much the same. As we said, it's probably set in the late 1790s. And yeah, you can kind of listen back to the context part of Pride and Prejudice. It'll become quite obvious as we talk through here what some of the like rules and customs are. But as Sarah already mentioned in her recap, like, women don't have any power. They can't own property. They're not able to control their own money. If you're born poor, life is shit. If you're a man or a woman. And if you're a young man who's like middle class or upper class, your job is to just be a gentleman. gad about, maintain your interests. And if you're a woman, your job is to marry well. And that usually means money. Money and a good position. And as we've also mentioned, 35 was considered an aging bachelor for a man. And if you were probably 25 for a woman, you're starting to age out.
Yep.
27, 28, done.
You're a spinster.
Finished. Over. Your life is done.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember that these characters are very young. Like Marianne is 17, Eleanor is 19, and so we kind of, for us, we're like, oh my God, like what are they talking about? Like getting married? That's like child bride, you know. But that was the norm at this time, and there was, that was kind of, that's why all the characters, the female characters, are quite young.
Yeah, and you see that, I think, in even like Sir John Middleton, who is the owner of the Barton Park and then the cottage that they moved to, and then his wife, Lady Middleton, is much younger than he is.
Much younger.
And it's like, okay, this is just normal within the context, even though it like is jarring for us as modern readers. And we may still go, no, that is like such a difference in age. But yeah, normal for the time and normal for the like expectations and goals of society, which was, you know, having children. And for men, it can happen at any age, and for women, they've not got as many reproductive years. And I think something I find interesting, and I wanted to ask you about, is do we know the age expectancy, like life expectancy for people in this era? Because I'm looking at like even Jane Austen herself, like dying at 41. Like if the life expectancy was like 45, 50 years, and then, you know, a man's 35, like I'm having more understanding of why Marianne's like, oh my God, he's so old at 35, because he may only have 15 years more of his life. You know? Like
it's roughly in the 40s, like early 40s, so 35 to 40.
So
and then obviously if you're really poor and you've lived in poverty,
even less,
your ability to is less. So I'd say like if you wouldn't see many people living into their 60s. I think if you're in your 50s, that would be considered old. So most people are getting married in their late teens, early 20s and having children pretty much straight away. And then as well, if you think about this, there's no birth control other than, you know, abstinence. So for women as well, if they're married at 18 and then they have, you know, 10 children or something, that takes a toll on your body and your
absolutely it does,
on your psychology in a way that, like, you know, you might only be 40, but then you might feel 60 and then your body kind of gives up. So all those things like diet, medicine and just lifestyle, all of those sorts of things contribute to a much lower life expectancy. But yeah, Jane Austen died of some horrific illness, like it was, I don't know if they think now it might have been some kind of stomach cancer or something, but some sort of thing.
Awful.
She didn't just die because she was old. She died from a disease, and she was wasting away for about 12 months or so before she passed.
That's horrible.
But yeah, that's why, you know, a man like a character like Colonel Brandon, who's 35, is considered to be like, you know, older. But what's interesting is that Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice is also about 33, 35, something like that.
No one mentions his age.
And and he's a bachelor in the prime of his life. So it's kind of the prejudice of Marianne. They're looking at him.
It definitely is the way we are kind of presented it by Marianne.
Yeah, like women are in their prime from about like 17, 18 to sort of 24, whereas men are in their prime from anywhere from
like 18
21 to 37 basically. And it would sort of be totally fine and acceptable for a man to marry at any point during that timeline. He'd be like, well, of course he would marry now. He's just finished at university. Or of course he would marry now. He's got his property and all his, you know, tenants sorted and la la la. And of course he would marry now. He's been in the army and now he's 35 and he's looking for a wife, you know? Like it's, But it also, I think, gives us... shows us something which I didn't really notice until I was reflecting on it for this episode, that there are barely any barely any fathers in this story.
True.
Like all of the main families that we look at, apart from Sir John.
Sir John, that was the only one I could
women.
Yeah. So Sir John and John Dashwood.
John Dashwood, that's it. And so it's like Mrs. Dashwood is widowed in her early 40s. So her husband was obviously a fair bit older than her. And then Mrs. Jennings. Who's quite a bit older, like she's probably in her late 40s, early 50s. She's widowed. And then, like
Mrs. Ferris?
Mrs. Ferris, yeah. Edward's elderly mother, like older mother. There are no fathers.
Yeah.
And this story is as much about sisters as it is about mothers and daughters and mothers and children, basically.
Yeah.
So that's another thing there. There's just like not a lot of dads.
Yeah. Yep, they're kind of gone.
They're
because
kind of out of here.
And something else which we can touch on later maybe, but in the story, and this is, I don't know, I don't think this is a spoiler, but one of the characters, one of the sisters falls gravely ill. And at one point I was like, I think too much in my modern frame of mind where I was like, oh my God, everyone's freaking out, like she'll be fine. And like to some extent that's because I know the story and I know that this character will be fine in the end. But then I'm also thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, this is like 1810 or like 1795 or something around that time period. They don't have penicillin. They don't have like anything to combat antibiotics, like, you know, they don't have anything. They've got this apothecary that comes and is like, we'll try this and we'll try that, and nothing seems to be working. And you've just got to rely on rest and constitution to be able to recover from things. And I was like, no wonder they're terrified that she could die, because she could die.
Yeah, because she was, and it's sort of said in the text that she's like, she is dying to death, like she's close to death. And yeah, it's just because like, okay, you might have a little trifling cold or whatever, to quote Mrs. Bennet, that, you need rest and warmth. But if it progresses to a fever and some kind of infection,
then
you're screwed. Like, the infection will just slowly take over your body. Whereas for us, we just go to the doctor, get some antibiotics. Be right as rain in a couple of days, you know? Whereas this, it's like, so it really is important for them to take care of themselves and keep their constitution healthy, because they can be struck down at any minute.
Yeah, and something I noted, which I found was funny, is that Jane, I just wrote, the women are always getting sick, lol. Like in her books, it feels like Pride and Prejudice, and this one there's always one of the young women that falls ill, and it's part of the plot. But it's like, I'm I guess, trying to take myself out of my modern frame of mind and go, oh, but this is what was happening for these families. Like this would have been, I'm sure Jane had sisters or like people that fell sick within her family, and this was a concern. So she's writing from her experience, because this would have been a common thing of the day.
Very common. And also just kind of shows that, you know, sometimes when people read these novels, they're like, oh my God, they don't do anything. They just like sit around all the time and they do this and they do that. And it's like, because if they did too many things, they would literally put themselves into the grave. Like they can't, they can't go for a 5K run every morning and then get up and do this and then go and work an 8-hour day. And then because they just don't have the kind of support systems to enable them to do stuff like that. So, and especially because the food they eat is like heavy and full of fat and like all this kind of stuff. So it's like they walk, they do lots of walks, they refine their minds and they get accomplishments like playing music or drawing, and for men they hunt. But it's not like the kind of society where people can just be like jazzing about all the time. Like if you think about it, if you have a really big week at work and then you spend the weekend partying and socializing with friends, you're going to be wrecked the following week. And so you usually need a day or two in bed to chill. So it's like they just do that a bit more spread out because they have to. Otherwise, they'll literally die.
Exactly.
Like if I lived in this time period, I would have been dead at 18 because I got pneumonia when I was 18.
Oh my God.
And it was...
Yes, I probably would have died at 14. I had glandular fever.
Oh yes, I had glandular fever at 14 too.
Yeah.
And it's like those kinds of infections and fevers, like that's just done.
Yeah, that's it.
We possibly also would have died of chickenpox as children, you know? Like, but yeah, like I was so unwell with that pneumonia. It was caught it just in time so I didn't have to go to hospital. But I couldn't even sit upright in a chair because that breathing through all that fluid on my lungs was making me pass out. It was making me faint.
Oh my God,
So
Amy.
if you think about that with no penicillin, you're just like, okay, thanks for all the fish, you know, great 18 years, bye, see ya.
Yep.
Like,
exactly.
So a little bit of respect for these characters.
Hectic life these ladies are living. Anyway, so let's dive into our spoilerful review of this book now. Should we start with what we like the most?
Yes. And I feel like I'm just trying not to repeat all the same stuff that we said in the Pride and Prejudice episode, but like, it's so good.
It's just excellent. Can I say, this is what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about this being her debut novel, and I was like, it just doesn't feel like a debut novel. No. And it is like her technically debut, the first one published, so that earns the title of debut novel. But it is such, like you said before, it's such a masterpiece, and it shows because it's not the first book she wrote. She was writing Pride and Prejudice along with it. She'd been writing for years,
and she wrote Northanger Abbey first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is not her first rodeo at writing. It's her first rodeo at publishing, which is fantastic. Like, and I'm so glad it did so well. But like, it's just such excellent writing. You could tell me that was her 40th book, and I'd be like, yeah, great, because it's polished, it's tight, it's witty, it's intelligent, like, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because when you do read Northanger Abbey, which was the one that she sort of wrote first in its full form, and then it got published last posthumously, it feels younger. And simpler, but still the language is still sophisticated. The things that she's exploring is still intelligent and sharp and witty. It's just almost like she had the concept for the story was smaller, so she kind of explored it in a little bit.
She would have been like,
and then
what,
she's like
14 or 15, 16 when she wrote it. So, like Northanger Abbey, maybe.
I can't really remember exactly.
A younger teenager. But just, incredible. Like, it just goes to, once again, prove, not that she needs to prove or that we need to prove it, but like once again proving just what a brilliant writer she is and why she completely deserves her kind of position as one of the greatest writers in history.
That's right. So she actually wrote it around the same sort of time between 23 and 24. So she was like,
okay, and she wasn't as young as I thought.
And this is why we always know it was like, it didn't get as much revision because she sort of wrote it between 98 and 99, 1798, 1799. She then revised it in 1803 when they went to Bath for a bit, and then sold it to a publisher. But it didn't get published. Sat and languished and didn't get published until I think it was her brother, Henry, was like after she died. It was like, come on, let's go. So
wow, okay. And so then in that period, then from 1803 to her death, it didn't get touched. It wasn't revised. It wasn't rewritten. That makes
So she would have, and again, like we said before, she had all these different earlier versions of Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, and worked on like certain characters and little certain scenes and things like that. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just interesting. I think maybe just the concept she's exploring here is a bit smaller, but like, I mean, this is a character dense book, and the writing is very sharp, and I mean, I like what I always like about a Jane Austen, which is it's so funny, it's really well paced, and I love character driven stories, and I feel like we get such intimate looks at the characters in this book that it's just really fun, like getting to see them interact and getting to get to know them.
Yeah, exactly. I had much of the same. I said the writing style was witty, funny, succinct, and engaging as always. It's a classic. I did really like you said, like all of the characters. Even the characters that we're meant to hate, that we're meant to find annoying and frustrating, are still interesting. And it's still like, oh my God, why are you here again, Fanny? But like, she adds so much. Like, I really liked that characters that we were introduced to right at the beginning of the book aren't there just then. Like, they are important to the whole story. They come back later on, and I don't know. I just really like that. She didn't waste any character, any moment, any sentence, any look, like all of it is important and intriguing.
And you get that sense again of like so much revision and so much just not a single word is superfluous or wasted. It's all very selected. I had a question for you about, before we talk a little bit more about characterization, I guess, but how did you find reading this compared to Pride and Prejudice? Because Pride and Prejudice was your first Austen that you had read?
First Austen I'd ever read, and then I attempted to read Emma at some point in my teenagehood.
That's right, and it was just
it's a bit... not more difficult to read, but I think at the time I just was like, this is not working for me.
And it is more difficult than Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, I would say. Like it's denser and bigger, and there's just a bit more going on.
Yeah. And also I just know Pride and Prejudice so much better because I've seen the BBC miniseries so many times. I just am so familiar with the story, so that was good. I have seen, as I said, I've seen the 1995 Emma Thompson Sense and Sensibility a handful of times, maybe like 4 or 5 times. Definitely, that's still a lot. But like not as many times as I've seen Pride and Prejudice. And I've never read Sense and Sensibility. So this was my first read of it. And I audiobooked the entire thing, which I also did I mostly audiobooked Pride and Prejudice. And I just found it so engaging and entertaining to audiobook it, because it feels like, so the way that Jane Austen has written these books, and Sense and Sensibility included, I think we talked about this in the Pride and Prejudice review, is it's like omniscient narrator kind of position where we get to hear the internal monologue and internal thoughts of pretty much every character. And so like, and it'll switch between which character's perspective we're seeing from within one chapter or within one scene. But it's done so seamlessly, so that when I'm audiobooking it, the narrator, the person who is like doing the voice acting, I guess, of the book, she is playing the role of Jane Austen, basically. Like
she's in the story. Like Jane Austen is a character in the story, basically.
So exactly. And so it's like, oh, this is it. Yeah, it's a really cool way to read it, because it's like I'm hearing Jane Austen read the story to me.
Which is so cool.
It's really cool. So I found it really good. I found some parts of it, dare I say, boring. Now, not like boring in the sense that I was like bored, but I was like, okay, not much is happening right now. And maybe that's because I'm more familiar with Pride and Prejudice, and I'm like, that feels like a more exciting novel to me. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, so they're just like here at Barton Park, and they're and they're going to dinner with the Middletons, and then they're coming around here, and like, oh, here's Willoughby again. And I don't know, but it wasn't. It was always engaging, even if there was less plot going on, which I think you mentioned. There's less plot in this book. There's much more character focused. I think that's what I'll say as to how I found reading it.
The comparison,
but it was good.
And I think
and funny.
Very funny, yeah. And that's another interesting thing is like, I think there's way more plot in Pride and Prejudice. Like they just do more things, they go more places. So that one is the best paced. Like there's never a dull moment. Whereas there's long stretches of them just being in the same place and kind of feeling the same feelings, and it's just this slow reveal. But this one's actually also a little bit more melancholy and a little more heartbreaking.
So much more melancholy.
There's a lot more.
There's a lot more, like, we see these characters being so distressed.
Yeah, and a lot more
long
like
periods of the book.
Heartbreak and complexity and stuff.
Yes.
And, so maybe before we get into that, I just sort of thought, like, again, one of the things that we always can expect from Jane Austen is how she can communicate a sense of her characters very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, in this one, so much more so in Pride and Prejudice, like those characters drive the plot, they drive the action, the tension, the drama, the happiness, the joy is all just about the nuances of personality.
Yeah.
So we played this game last time where I read a bunch of quotes for Sarah and got her to guess which character was being described.
Yes.
And sometimes it's Jane Austen's perception, sometimes it's the perception of the character, but it's all sort of the short, kind of quippy description of a character when we sort of first meet them or when we meet them again. And I just feel like she's the queen of doing it with just a few choice words.
Fantastic.
So are you up
very
for
ready.
it?
Yes.
Okay. Now
this is going to be tricky because I don't know these characters as well as I did Pride and Prejudice, but I'm open to it.
Quite a few. I've got 11.
Okay.
Because I want to give us a good coverage of the characters, and it might be good as well for our listeners to like refresh a little bit who we're talking about.
Yes, perfect.
But yes, I think she's still just as good, and it's some of my favourite lines as well, are these sorts of things.
Great, let's do it.
All right, so kicking off is this one.
Okay.
She had an excellent heart, her disposition was affectionate, and her feelings were strong, but she knew how to govern them. It was a knowledge which her mother had yet to learn, and which one of her sisters had resolved never to be taught.
I know who this one is. That's Eleanor.
It is Eleanor. This comes on page 8 of the Penguin version that I'm reading. This one here. There we go. So yes, this is one of our very first descriptions of Eleanor, our titular character.
Yep.
I like it though because it shows us like I think we can fall into a trap if we just be like, okay, sense is Eleanor and sensibility is Marianne.
Right.
But Eleanor is still...
Feels deeply,
has really strong emotions. The difference is not that she's not cold. She just knows how to govern them and not express them in a way that particularly gives distress to other people.
Yes.
Or makes her emotions other people's problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I really like that in that description we also learn something of Mrs. Dashwood and Marianne as well. Like like Jane Austen saying like, this is what Eleanor is like, and then I'll give you a little hint as to what the other two are like as well. Like her mother has never learned how to do this, and Marianne has resolved never to do this.
She's like offended at the very idea that you would censor your emotions or like dampen them down or whatever. Like she's just very like, but I'm feeling this.
Yes.
This is like, how could you possibly not express it? Obviously your emotions are not as real as mine, because if they were real, you would be expressing
them. And I think it sets the stage perfectly. We understand these characters, and I'm sure you're about to read at some point, you'll read me Marianne's description and all that kind of stuff, and we can discuss it. But it sets the stage perfectly for trying to understand, like you said, the sense and sensibility of these two characters. And it's not just them, it's all the other characters as well, portraying like this sense or sensibility. And I really like later on in the book, there's some moments where, and this is the spoilerful bit, Eleanor, Edward comes in right at the end. Yes. And Eleanor is so overcome with her feelings that she runs out of the room and starts crying. And it's like, that's her sensibility there, like her like being so overcome that she cannot contain her emotions and her feelings. And so I really like that and even in that, like, it's not to the same extent of sensibility that Marianne is for the entire book, but I really like it. It's
and even like, I think I highlighted one, I've got to find it because it's just perfect for this. It's about when they find out from their servant right at the end that Mr. Ferris is married. And at first we think that this is Edward. Ferris, Eleanor's dear love. It turns out through some hilarious circumstance to be his brother. So Edward is single and free. Anyway, and so the servant goes, I suppose you know, ma'am, that Mr. Ferris is married. Because Marianne gave a violent start, fixed her eyes upon Eleanor, saw her turning pale, and fell back in her chair in hysterics. So it's Marianne is more affected. Is like, looks at Eleanor, and Eleanor's like, holy shit. And then she's
Marianne's like,
but it was like, oh God. And it's like, Mrs. Dashwood, whose eyes, as she answered the servant's inquiry, had intuitively taken the same direction, was shocked to perceive by Eleanor's countenance how much she really suffered. And in a moment afterwards, alike distressed by Marianne's situation, knew not on which child to bestow her principal attention.
Exactly. She's like, who do I help here?
Oh my God.
What do I do? Both my daughters are in distress, one more vocally than the other.
One is sitting there looking like a corpse because she's so pale, and the other one is like writhing around in hysterics. It's so good.
It's so good.
The images are so funny.
Oh my gosh. And Mrs. Dashwood, like, she's funny. I really like her as a character. I think she's quite interesting because she feels like, she feels like Marianne in so many ways of like, so like having, the sensibility that can't be tamed and doesn't want to be tamed. And yet at other times, much like Eleanor, where she's like, can be brought to having some sense.
She can have her moments.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the next one, and probably a bit of a dead giveaway. We've got to do the contrast. Here's this. She was sensible and clever, but eager in everything. Her sorrows, her joys could have no moderation. She was generous, amiable, interesting. She was everything but prudent.
Yeah, that's Marianne.
That's Marianne.
Yeah.
And again, just like we get with Eleanor, the first thing says, an excellent heart, affectionate, and her feelings are strong. The first thing said about Marianne is sensible and clever. Yeah. So Jane Austen's reminding us she has a brain, she has a mind, she's very intelligent. Yes. But she's eager. Yep. And she lacks moderation in any of her things, her joys and her sorrows.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. She's just been given basically free reign throughout her entire childhood, I imagine. Just
classic middle child.
Classic middle child. Eleanor's the eldest, and she's, I related a lot to Eleanor with like some of the things that she has to do as an eldest daughter, the responsibilities and pressures put on her. And then Marianne's kind of this free spirit, but she's not unintelligent. She's just ruled by her heart and ruled by her emotions, and lets them like fully guide her decisions.
To her own detriment at times, you know. It's so when we mentioned before one of the characters gets really ill, that's Marianne. She gets this horrible cold that then turns into a fever and she does almost die.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why this illness took such a hold on her is because she'd been languishing, you know, moping about the fact that her love, Willoughby, was, you know, no longer going to be with her and was going to marry somebody else, and she was so heartbroken and she was so distressed and she just like gave over to the sensibility of it all, rather than kind of trying to pluck up and you know, take care of herself and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it really does.
And she's not unlikable still. There are times where she is
she's very
incredibly annoying and frustrating, but overall she's still a likable character. And I think it's nice. I really like seeing the relationship between Eleanor and Marianne that is tested, and like they have to kind of call each other out, mostly Eleanor, because let's be real, Eleanor doesn't really do anything wrong or bad in the entire book, but I liked seeing these sisters that love each other dearly despite their huge differences in temperament.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that makes Marianne a little bit more likeable is the fact that Eleanor likes her so much.
We like Eleanor and Eleanor likes Marianne, so we go with that.
Lots of the sort of ridiculousness of Marianne is softened a little bit because Eleanor loves her so much and can kind of see real goodness in her behaviour and her actions, even when she's being very stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so those are our two main gals.
Yay!
Next one. And this is not the very first mention or introduction. The very first one is really short. This is the next one where they kind of see this person again.
Okay.
His manners, though serious, were mild, and his reserve appeared rather the result of some oppression of spirits than of any natural gloominess of temper.
Is this Colonel Brandon?
It is Colonel Brandon.
Yay!
So I think the first time they see him, they mention him as like, he was not very handsome nor very gay. Like, he's just, like, a bit ugly and really glum. Like, he's just a bit, like...
Yeah.
Like, anyway. And then they move on. And then this is like, oh, actually, yeah, he's serious. But, like, it seems like maybe because he's a bit sad rather than
because his temperament is
he's just
gloomy
like
and sad.
Like, he's a wet blanket, you know?
Yeah. Oh, Colonel Brandon.
Colonel Brandon. I love him.
He suffers so much.
He suffers so much. Should we talk about that now?
I think we should talk about that now. Let's talk about Colonel Brandon and his deep, lifelong sufferings.
Yeah, I'm going to make a claim here. I feel like this is one of the greatest character backstories that's ever been written for a character.
Ooh.
There's just so much in it that just grabs me and entices me.
So much nuance.
Yeah, and it's just so heartbreaking. And it's interesting because then I was reflecting, I'm like, part of a lot of what the characters in the book, their affection for Colonel Brandon comes from the fact that they know he's suffered a lot.
Yeah.
So it's almost this like pity and sympathy.
Yeah.
But he still is also a really great person anyway.
Yes.
Like, he's a very generous friend.
Yep.
He's a really generous landlord. He puts up with so much, you know, ribbing and crap from all of the people around him. But, like, he's a genuinely good guy. But I do think the tragedy of his backstory makes him more lovable because you're just like, fucking hell, man.
He's gone through so much. Yeah, so tell us about it. Tell us about his backstory and how it is completely relevant to the girls and what we see happening with them.
So poor Colonel Brandon, he is the second son of some guy. And we get told very early on that there's some young woman in his life, and we're sort of hinted at that she might be his daughter from some previous affiance, some relationship, which if you know anything about Colonel Brandon, would never happen.
No.
Could never. He would never.
He's so honourable.
Very honourable. And then we also get lots of these dropped hints in the early part of the book of this tragedy. There's some oppression of spirits. He'd really suffered. Something happened once to a woman that he loved, a girl that he loved, and he's kind of never recovered. It's never been the same. And so the situation basically is that there is a girl called Eliza who is an orphan. And I don't know why, but she ends up being a ward of his family. So obviously there was some connection. She's kind of adopted into his family. And whoever she was, she got a shitload of money. She got a huge fortune that's been left to her. So Colonel Brandon and Eliza grow up living in the same house. They grow up together, and he describes her as being like really sweet and having the loveliest temperament. She's really excitable and just full of life and joy. And so, of course, he falls in love with her. He's just besotted with her. And they get to sort of late teens, I guess, and they want to marry each other. And so they're making plans to elope because I think they must have some sense that
it's not going to be...
Colonel Brandon's father has some design for her. It's a bit unclear how much they know about the plan. But basically, they are planning to elope, to marry each other because they love each other. But the father has schemes for Eliza to marry Colonel Brandon's older brother because he's the heir, he's the eldest, and then he will inherit all of her money, and then he's kind of like the head of the next generation, basically, with all this money. So whether or not Eliza and Brandon really know that that's what's going on, it's not really clear. But basically, they are discovered or exposed by a maid, kind of like on the eve of when they're about to scurry away. Brandon gets packed off to the army, basically, as punishment. He gets sent off to the West Indies.
Something like that, yeah.
And Eliza is then kind of... Oh, no, that's right. I don't think Brandon knows anything about the scheme because the way he tells it is like they're discovered, he's packed off as a sort of a punishment. And then the next thing he hears, she's married to his brother.
Yeah.
And so he's heartbroken because he's like, but you said that you loved me forever and we were always going to be together and you would wait for me. Like, what's going on? How could you be so inconstant? And actually what had happened is that the old Brandon, the dad, had basically trapped Eliza in the house, worked on her and like pushed her and manipulated her into marrying the older brother, who by all accounts was a fucking asshole.
Awful.
And then so all Brandon feels is like she's betrayed him and married his brother. And so he's like, I'm just going to stay away over here because this is so heartbreaking.
And I can't be anywhere close because I don't want to see that.
I can't see that,
lived out, like my nightmare.
And so then the older brother is an asshole. He's never cared about Eliza and doesn't grow to care for her once they get married. She sort of is talked into believing that it's going to be a good thing, realises very quickly that it's not. She's horribly upset and horribly depressed. And the way Brandon narrates it is that because he keeps himself away, she had literally no friend and no confidant and nobody to support her in this really awful marriage. And so it's not long after, I think it's like 2 years later, he hears that they've gotten divorced, which is just practically unheard of.
That's insane for that time period.
And so I think that the only way you would be able to get a divorce granted is to prove infidelity. And infidelity on her part, yeah. I mean, you probably could get to a point where you'd prove that your husband had been unfaithful and maybe be granted a divorce, but there's not much benefit to women for doing that. They need men. They are dependent on men in this period. Whereas Colonel Brandon's older brother can basically be like, well, I've got all the money now and I don't really like her and she's cheating on me.
So, bye.
So they get divorced and poor Eliza, penniless, is essentially like thrown to the wind. She has no friends. Nobody takes her in. By the time Colonel Brandon gets back to England, it's some years later, and he finds her very just haggard, and she's dying. She's dying of consumption in a poorhouse. She's in a debtor's prison, basically. It's kind of like a house where people who owe shitloads of money are kept until they can kind of pay it back.
Shit.
And she has a child. She has a little girl from her first seducer, is how he calls it. So he sees her, they're able to reconnect, and he's just so devastated and like hates himself for leaving her and all that kind of thing. Helps her die well, basically, and then takes the child, little Eliza, as his ward and sort of helps set her up in a position living with a good family in the country, because he can't really afford to do too much more than that, and he can't really have her living with him at that point, I don't think. And sometime later his older brother dies, and then he assumes that living in that really big fancy house, and then she comes and visits him quite a bit, but at that time he doesn't have anywhere for her to go, so he puts her with this family in the country. And so that's his tragic backstory. Not only his heart is broken and he loses the one he loves, loses her to his older brother who treats her so poorly that she seeks comfort any way she can, and then that leads to her divorce, which is her downfall and her ruin, and then she dies several years later in a fucking poorhouse with this illegitimate child, and it's just so grim. So grim.
Yeah, it's so sad.
And so what do you think then that shows for how he then meets Marianne, obviously?
Yeah, so he meets Marianne, and it's kind of described that Marianne reminds Colonel Brandon so much of Eliza, older, like not child Eliza.
Yeah.
The one he was in love with. And it kind of like, I guess, like freaks him out a little bit. He's like, oh my God, she is exactly the same. Like, she's so similar. He falls in love with Marianne, of course. And I was going to say as well, like, it's just his goodness shines through in what he doesn't do and he doesn't say, not just what he does do and does say. Like, the fact that, you know, he gets, so yeah, part of the plot is that he is at Barton Park with visiting the Middletons and meets the Dashwoods, falls in love with Marianne, and gets called away one evening by a letter that he receives, and he has to go like immediately, and they're all like, can't you just wait till tomorrow, like just leave in the morning, blah blah blah, and stay with us for one more night, stay with us for dinner, whatever. And he's like, no, I literally have to go now, I cannot lose a single hour. And he leaves, and then they're all speculating about what this could be, and that's kind of where we learn this backstory, like this rumor that there's this girl that is his daughter and all this sort of stuff. His love child. And I mean, obviously he's gone by that point, but I'm sure he knows that that's the rumor.
Absolutely.
He knows that that's what people think of him, and yet to protect that girl and to protect like this history, and because it's so precious to him, he doesn't dissuade them. He just wears that, you know, the fact that, oh, Colonel Brandon, he's pretty great, but he's got this we reckon he probably had this love child and so treated some woman really poorly. And it's like, he could share that whole story and make it known that he is actually doing something incredibly wonderful to protect and help her. But it also would be very painful for him to share that story, to be like, I wasn't the friend I should have been, and kind of contributed to this.
And look how awful my father and my brother were.
Exactly.
This sort of like shame of having family members that behaved in this way that are just so awful, but then also like him not wanting to slag them off because he's a good son.
He's a good son.
After all of that, he's protecting their memory, and he's not going to like destroy the Brandon name and all that kind of thing. Like, it's really intense.
Yeah. And so then, of course, we find out that this young Eliza has been... she disappeared at some point, and it was
about like 12 months
before. Like, she just kind of, he hadn't heard from her, and the family hadn't seen her, and basically we learned that she had met up with this guy and kind of run off with him, basically, which is incredibly...
goes to like Bath or something with a friend.
And he had okayed that trip because he trusted that the family that they were going with, the father was going with them. So it's like, great, they'll be protected.
And then the father's like, yeah, girls, have some fun time. And then she disappears, presumably with some guy. And the friend is like, I don't know.
I'm not even sure where she went.
She obviously does, but she's like, yeah, I don't know.
Don't know what happened.
Whatever. So she's just gone.
She's just gone. She's literally just missing. And the letter that he receives is saying, we found her. Like, we know her whereabouts now. Like, this is where she is.
It's from Eliza.
It's crazy.
As Miss Williams. So, yeah.
It's absolutely insane. So, of course, he has to go find her because, like, fuck, like, it's been a year and she's been gone. And basically, she got pregnant. And
was left by this guy that she'd run off with every promise of returning.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe we'll leave it.
I was going to say, do we leave this one for the big reveal in just a moment? But it's just insane that then, you know, this is what Brandon is dealing with, and he has to. Anyway, yeah, we'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. This is a spoilerful bit, but let's build the suspense.
And so it's like, you know, if what we love about Eleanor is her fortitude and her capacity to feel deeply but be other people focused in the way that she processes those feelings and experiences them, Brandon is the exact same.
Yeah.
And he is so conscious of other people while still doing honour to himself, but he's just, he's so honourable. And one of my other favourite bits is from this moment where he's finally tells this whole backstory. The reason we know it is he tells it all to Eleanor. For a very specific purpose that we'll talk about soon. And during that, Eleanor is like obviously like horrified and shocked by everything that he's saying and kind of, you know, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, there's at one point he like can't speak anymore and he gets up and kind of walks around the room for a little bit. And it says, Eleanor, affected by his relation and still more by his distress, could not speak. And then I just thought this was so beautiful. It says, he saw her concern and coming to her, took her hand, pressed it and kissed it with grateful respect. A few minutes more of silent exertion enabled him to proceed with composure.
Yeah.
So it's like he's just this
He
really
feels so
beautiful friend as well, being like, oh my gosh, like I know this is so much.
This is distressing to hear for you, Eleanor.
And just like grabbing her hand and giving
just,
it a
like,
kiss and just holding it with this like, you know, grateful respect of like, I've just trauma dumped on you basically and you're handling it really well, and also just like, I'm so sorry.
And like, but thank you for listening so beautifully.
It's beautiful.
It is
and I love the emerging friendship between the two of them.
I think that's probably my favorite friendship of the entire book. Like
it's so
compared
good.
to, especially compared to all the other female friendships that are in this book, where it's like her and Lucy and like it's just horrible, and like the Miss Steeles and just all these people that are just so grating, and like the friendship is not true or real or deep, and then to see this emerging friendship between Colonel Brandon and Eleanor, which is so steady and just respectful and so lovely, and I'm like, oh, this is really nice.
And a genuine like meeting of minds and meeting of sensibilities. Like they're very similar.
They're so similar, and it makes sense why Mrs. Jennings is like, you two could be together.
Totally
and it's
marry
like,
each other.
Yeah, if we weren't desperately in love with other people.
then they would make a great
they
match.
make a great couple, but they've got their hearts are engaged elsewhere.
They have other schemes.
Okay.
All right, so our next one. He was not handsome, and his manners required intimacy to make them pleasing. He was too diffident to do justice to himself, but when his natural shyness was overcome, his behaviour gave every indication of an open, affectionate heart. His understanding was good, and his education had given it solid improvement.
Edward Ferrars.
Edward! He's just middling.
He's just like,
a guy.
He's just a guy. He's like a guy that's sweet. He's shy, but he's like, he's fine. He was not handsome.
I love it. He was not handsome. And his manners required intimacy to make them pleasing, i.e. he's awkward in company.
He's just a shy, introverted guy.
Yeah.
Who's also a bit like, how am I, like, why am I here? Like, and where am I? Like, he kind of just goes with the wind in his life.
Yeah, and because he also has these moments where he can be very funny and very witty, but it's when he's with Eleanor and Marianne and like
people
feeling
he feels
comfortable.
so comfortable with,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and I just like it, like his understanding was good, so he's smart, he's not the smartest, and his education had given it solid improvement. Like, he's just a good guy.
He's just a good guy.
Yeah.
He's just a guy.
Just a guy. He's a good egg. But when you like compare him to all the other characters in the story, like, just being like, a good guy is quite rare, actually.
Yeah, actually, we appreciate this.
And to be Edward's born into a very wealthy family.
Yeah.
Wealthy family.
Wealthy.
And he's the eldest son. And so his mum and his sister, so it's his sister, Fanny Dashwood, you remember, who's married to John Dashwood, Eleanor and Marianne's half-brother. There's a lot of Dashwoods and a lot of Ferrises.
Oh, gosh.
But yes, so it's like his mother and his sister, who are really snooty and awful, have a lot of designs for Edward. They want him to distinguish himself in some way, like be a great orator, go into law, be a soldier or this whatever. And he's just like, I kind of just want to be a clergyman or just be like a farmer. Like, I just want to chill out.
I just want to live my life, guys.
Yeah, and he's very different to them. Like, he's that sweet tempered, and that shyness means that he just goes with the wind basically, because his mum and his sister have so many schemes, and he's just sort of like, okay, whatever. And so it's nice when we get to see him having a bit of agency and freedom to be on his own and make his own choices. And that's part of it. He just falls in love with Eleanor, and much to the fear and frustration of his sister, who is watching it happen, and makes it very clear that Edward has to marry very well some rich heiress or something like that. So he's just a good egg.
He's a good egg, and I liked by the end of the book that we see him kind of take charge a little bit more.
Yes.
Like, he's stuck in this position where he is engaged to somebody else and can't seem to get out of it, even though he he does not love this woman anymore, and she doesn't truly love him, and it's just like, it's not going to be a good match for either of them, realistically. Like, it's not going to be a happy marriage, but he'll go through with it because he's
a man of honor.
A man of honor. He's just got to. But by the time he's free of that from other circumstances, he actually does take charge of what he wants, which I was really glad to see, because I was like, he could have been, again, just gone with the wind, but he, in that crucial moment, he goes, no. And like right at the end, I think it's his errand at Barton. This is chapter 49. His errand at Barton, in fact, was a simple one. It was only to ask Eleanor to marry him. And considering that he was not altogether inexperienced in such a question, it might be strange that he should feel so uncomfortable in the present case, as he really did, so much in need of encouragement and fresh air. How soon he had walked himself into the proper resolution. Anyway, it goes on.
It's so funny.
He knows his goal is one goal only, just ask Eleanor to marry me. Like, he's got his goal in sights, and then he gets there and he's freaking out because he actually feels it so deeply there,
and he can actually do something about it after years and years of being trapped in this engagement to this useless woman who he did originally think was beautiful and lovely and all that you could want in a wife, and then as he moved more in the world, had more opportunity to meet other people, grew up a little bit, he was like, oh fuck, this woman sucks. And actually there are, and not even like he was getting about and like sleeping with a bunch of women. He wasn't doing that. He just experienced a bigger world. And then he meets Eleanor and is like, oh, this is what it feels like. This is it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I love that. Yeah, he's just like, finds out that Lucy is like, yeah, look, I don't think we're very fond of each other anymore. By the way, I'm married to your brother. Bye. And then he's like, Eleanor, and then like rides to Devonshire, and he's like,
must get to Eleanor right away.
And then he just rocks up and he's all like agitated, and they're like,
and everyone's like, he's like, I've got my one goal, but I just need a second to calm down.
It's so good,
so great. Love it. All right, next
brilliant
character.
So we're what, 4 for 4? Okay, all right. This is the next one. He spoke in a manner so frank and so graceful that his person, which was uncommonly handsome, received additional charms from his voice and expression. And then again on the same page, he had manly beauty and more than common gracefulness.
Is this Willoughby?
It is Willoughby. There's only one person.
There's only one person who could be described so beautifully and yet be such a cad. He's so horrible.
Uncommonly handsome and incredibly charming. Manly beauty and more than common gracefulness.
He's so horrible.
Yeah.
It's this classic thing, which I think you said to me off pod on Sunday maybe, where it's like, Austen often writes, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Like, if there's a character that's introduced so and seems so wonderful, you gotta be like, what's going on? Because the men these two characters end up with are not
handsome,
but good
and very glum.
Not handsome, glum, shy, and awkward. But like, they're the ones whose true character is honourable and good, and that shines through. And then you've got this man here who is uncommonly beautiful and moves with all this grace and his eloquence and all this kind of stuff, and it's just a shiny facade for a rotten inside.
Yeah, I will say though, for Willoughby, I think what's interesting is that like, he's very complex, and there are moments where we see him having real genuine remorse, real genuine kind of understanding of the hurt that he has inflicted.
Yeah.
But always it's with this, like, he actually mostly feels the most sorry for himself.
He always is like, woe is me. I know like this sucks, but now I can't be with the love of my life, and I'm married to this sucky woman, and like,
who by the way has £30,000.
Yeah, who by the way is like, set me up for life, and I'm gonna live a great life.
So you want to explain? So what's like, why do we hate Willoughby? Like, if this is our introduction to him, and he's super beautiful and lovely. Obviously, if you're Marianne and you're like 17 and you have a penchant for poetry and like mysterious men wandering through the mists, you're gonna be like, perfection.
And he quickly falls in love with Marianne, kind of allegedly doesn't make Marianne fall in love with him, because like, she just does it from her own accord, but he could make anyone fall in love with him. I feel like it would work. He spends, I don't know how long, like 6 months, less than that. It's kind of unclear.
Yeah, a few months.
It's a couple months he spends around Barton. His estate, Cum Magna, is nearby-ish to Barton.
No, that's near Cleveland. It's
never mind.
So it's, what's her name, Mrs. Smith or something?
Oh yeah,
Lady Allen.
Lady Allen.
Is it Lady Allen at Allenham? Mrs. Smith at Allenham? Oh my god, there's too many Austen name crossovers.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's an old lady who is his relative that lives
that's
at
right.
Allenham, is the property near Barton, and that he goes there to visit for the 6 weeks of the summer or whatever.
That's right. He has his property Combe Magna, which is further away.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So Willoughby is like relatively well off in his own
Smith.
right.
There we go.
Mrs. Smith.
Sorry, it's just such a boring name.
Yeah,
I'm like, surely your name's Lady Allen of Allenham.
Allen of Allenham. No. So he comes along, stays with this old relative of his, meets Marianne because she trips and falls and breaks her bones, and he comes and picks her up and carries her in, and they fall in love, they read poetry, all this gorgeous stuff. He and Marianne tease Colonel Brandon mercilessly, and Colonel Brandon just like kind of puts up with it, but doesn't really like Willoughby, and it's kind of horrible. And we're like, why do you not like Willoughby? He seems to be great. And like Eleanor even likes him, and Mrs. Dashwood is in love with him, and
They're
is
very
like
charmed by him.
He's charmed by him. He seems to be, you know, everyone's assuming that she being Marianne and Willoughby will get engaged or are engaged. And
they're obviously in love with each other.
Obviously in love with each other, and Marianne is being incredibly irresponsible with the amount of time that she's spending alone with him, the places that she's going with him, kind of not looking after her prospects, I guess, for the future, because if nothing is actually set in stone, the way that it's very impropriety is the word that comes to mind. They're not behaving well in society if there's not an actual engagement between them.
And so this is what, even though Eleanor does find him charming and can see that they care for each other, Eleanor often has suspicions that maybe Marianne cares for him more, and then she's like, no, they definitely care for each other. And then she's like, but are they engaged? Like, why won't they tell us if they're engaged? Like, we expect any day now for him to like ask for Mama's consent, like all this sort of stuff, and just this sort of formalization of this relationship it's just never coming. And so Eleanor's just a little bit suspicious.
Yeah.
And then essentially, like the day before. Oh, sorry, there's a day where it's like, oh my God, like it's happening. Like tomorrow morning,
they're going to get engaged.
We're going to go for a walk, and Marianne's hanging behind because Willoughby wants to talk to her privately. And then they come back from this walk, they come into the house, Marianne is in hysterics and she runs out of the room crying, and Willoughby's all like, I've been called away, I need to leave. And, you know, Mrs. Smith has like exercised her riches basically that she was going to give to Willoughby on a distant cousin, and so he needs to leave for town immediately because something has happened. There's been some breach and he all of a sudden needs to leave, and he like flurries off, and Eleanor's like, why did he leave like that?
Why couldn't he explain
without saying anything about what's going on? Something really weird has happened.
And then through a series of things, it ends up that Marianne and Eleanor go to London, go to town with Mrs. Jennings, and every single day they're waiting. Marianne is waiting and waiting and waiting for Willoughby to come call and for them to see each other, and then it ends up happening that they see each other at a dance, and he's with this other lady.
He's with this other woman, and he treats them so coldly, really
poorly.
Indifferently. Barely even looks at them or speaks to them.
And Marianne is just distraught by this. Like, she's destroyed, heartbroken. And it comes out, Eleanor and Marianne discuss it, and it turns out that there was never any engagement. He never confessed to love her. Like, there was not, like, she knows that he loved her, but he never said it. He never, you know, promised anything. And that Marianne's basically, lost by this. And then...
And he's engaged to be married to this other woman that they saw at this ball.
And so Marianne is completely destroyed by this.
And then we basically find out as it goes along, because then Marianne spends months weeping and crying and making herself sick in town over this whole thing, and, you know, alternating between blaming Willoughby as like the most disgusting, awful blackguard of all time, and then being like, but I knew him, how could he be like this? Everyone else must have set this up somehow. People are against us, people divided us or something. And the truth is a little bit in between. So what we then discover is that the letter that Colonel Brandon got to say that his ward, what was her name?
Eliza.
Miss Williams, young Eliza, has been found after she's been missing for 12 months. She's pregnant, and essentially the man that seduced her and ran away with her and then left her was Willoughby. And what caused the rupture between Willoughby and his rich relative Mrs. Smith was discovering this. She found out that he had done so wrong by this Miss Williams, and she actually even said to him, like, you need to marry this woman because she's pregnant with your child. And he was like, I can't possibly do that. because I'm in love with Marianne, but he doesn't say that. He's like, no, I can't. So then she's like, well, get the fuck out of my sight. See ya. And then he's like, oh, and now I can't even be with Marianne anyway because I need money.
And she has nothing.
She has no money. And so, you know what? I'm sure we'll forget about each other. I'm sure she'll forget about me. I'm sure it was just a trifle. And then he goes to town and
finds this woman who has £30,000.
Who he knew, this is a subtle detail that I always forget, he knew he could secure her. He says this when he explains it to Eleanor. He said, I knew I could secure her by just paying a slight attention. Like, so he already obviously had some flirtation with this woman, and knew that she was in the wings, basically, that he could be like, okay, I need you now. I'm gonna
time to turn this on. Yeah, it's disgusting.
So there's no explanation of this until much later, and then the horror of first we find out he's engaged, then we find out that he was the seducer of Miss Williams and then just like destroyed her, and then that's why he then chases money and gets with this other woman. And then we finally also get this scene when Marianne is very unwell and Willoughby like rides through the night to come and just be assured that she's not dead. And he has this really long one-on-one conversation with Eleanor while Marianne's upstairs kind of dying, and he tries to defend himself and tries to explain himself, and this was where I was saying he's quite complicated because so much of it is awful and you know, unpardonable, but then he also admits that, and he kind of knows that he's done the wrong thing, and then is like, I'm vain, I have expensive habits, like I chose to prioritize money over my heart and my affection, thinking that that's what would make me happy, and now I'm not happy. And I realised that actually I should have prioritised the affection over money. But I think Eleanor is so shrewd in this conversation because she's like, basically he only downplays the importance of money now that he has it.
Yes.
And he's playing up the importance of, you know, the character of his wife and how he feels about her. Whereas if he had chosen Marianne and they had no money, it would have been deeply effective and really impactful on their life. And it's just so hectic.
And we learn as well, like, that Colonel Brandon knows that it's Willoughby who treated Eliza so poorly, and then is watching Marianne, the woman that he loves, fall in love with Willoughby, who he knows did this horrible thing. Like, it just sucks for Colonel Brandon so much. It's
just like this awful man that has done this awful thing to his essentially his daughter.
And then he's watching the woman he loves
be in love with him, Again, he doesn't want to say anything because he wants to hope that Willoughby has like bettered himself, and that, you know, he can't expose the scandal against Willoughby because it'll hurt Marianne, and like, anyway, it's just so awful. But so I think that whole scene between Willoughby and Eleanor is really interesting, but and a perfect indication of how charming and manipulative he is. Because the whole time she's like, oh my God,
she's like, awful. Against my wishes, like, I kind of feel for you and I'm pitying you in this.
And she's like, you're saying all these awful things. You're saying awful things about your wife. You're now disrespecting your wife by telling me how much you still love Marianne and like love her above all other women. Like, this is very wrong. This is disgusting. Anyway, and so it's really crazy. And then she says, like, I gotta find this bit, hang on. Okay, here we go. So in the next chapter, then Eleanor's just kind of sitting there processing everything, and then she's going through about how she's like, you know, only half an hour ago she'd abhorred him as the most worthless of men. But then after this conversation, she's seeing, in spite of all his faults, you know, he had excited a degree of commiseration for the sufferings produced by them, which made her think of him now as separated forever from her family, with a tenderness, a regret, rather in proportion, as she soon acknowledged within herself, to his wishes than to his merits.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted that pity.
He wants them to feel sorry for him, that he's so unhappy and he's never going to be happy again.
And I just love deserving it.
This line where she's sort of talking about it, you know, she felt that his influence over her was heightened by circumstances which ought not in reason to have weight. Which is talking about the sort of the liveliness of his manner, that charmingness. And then she says this line, but she felt that it was so long before she could feel his influence less. Like, she has to like shed this guy off.
She has to go like,
oh
my God, that was like so intense.
He's so manipulative in a charming way.
And so charming, exactly, which we know from the outset, from the very first time we meet him. And this is what it is. This is what's it's so clever from Jane Austen. Like, the plot is still interesting in this book, even though there's less of it from her other books. But it's not just Marianne and Eleanor and, you know, the good people that we understand in terms of a character study. It's also it's so complex because we can't just say, oh, Willoughby sucks. I mean, we can and we will, but like he does suck. But it's even in she does such a good job of making him so complex that we not second guess ourselves, but we have to think twice, and we go, okay, hang on a second.
And again, you can perfectly see the circumstances that has gone into every person's characterization over the course of their life that's then resulted in this action. And there's a great piece of dialogue between Eleanor and Marianne later when they're kind of talking about it after Marianne has recovered and all that sort of stuff. And they're sort of just talking about, like, essentially, like, his life was ruined before he even met Marianne because of the grave offence that he committed against Miss Williams.
Yes.
Like, he did genuinely love Marianne, although in that speech he confesses that at the start she was so expressively into him that he was just like, nice, and just thought to like flirt with her and have fun because that gratified his vanity. And then he actually fell in love with her.
And he was like, oh.
But then didn't want to tell her that because he was like, oh, but like this is just a thing. This is just us having fun. I'm not going to tell you that I love you. So like all these weird vanities and like self-absorbed things. But even though we know and believe that he did love Marianne, he never acted with her interests at heart. He always acted for himself, and he had done this truly awful thing beforehand that it ruined him from ever being able to do right by another woman again because he'd done wrong by that woman.
Yep.
And it's just
exactly. That's a great way to put it.
And it's just a classic Jane Austen thing where it's just like not only if it's too good to be true, it usually is, but the constancy of character is the most important thing. And this person has made a horrible, grave mistake earlier, and it will affect the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't get a happy ending necessarily, but also he lives with a woman who's probably fine and has £30,000. Like, he's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine.
Yep.
Anyway, so those are probably our main 5 characters.
Nice.
We've got the 2 sisters and then the 3 male love interests that sort of all pop up in varying degrees. Now I've got a slew of side characters, and we can probably get through them a bit more quickly.
I'll just guess them this time, and we'll go through them.
There's some good things to say about some of them, but we've talked a lot about them.
And that's covered a lot of the plot, I think, of things that we wanted to talk about. So that's really good.
It's a character-driven story.
It's a character-driven story. Let's focus on the characters. All right. Let's speed run this. I'm going to do my best. I've got 4 from 4.
No, 5 from 5. Yep.
All right, and so we've got 6 more. Let's do it.
Okay.
See how many I can get.
So this person is described as a, quote, good-humoured, merry, fat, elderly woman who talked a great deal, seemed very happy, and rather vulgar.
Yeah, Mrs. Jennings.
Mrs. Jennings! I actually
love her
Mrs.
so
Jennings.
much.
And I love that she starts off as, this vulgar, fat, good-humoured, she kind of makes jokes, she's gross. And Marianne is like, oh, she's so ridiculous. And actually, across the whole story, she's so kind.
She's a very steady friend and, like, not mother, like kind of mother figure, especially when they're in London.
Yes.
Like she does a lot for them.
Yeah, and she just but when Marianne is sick, she's like genuinely helpful and genuinely supportive of Eleanor. And so this is our intro to her as being this like gross kind of stupid person, but actually she's like one of the goats of this story.
Absolutely.
Like she's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, next one. He entered the room with a look of self-consequence, slightly bowed to the ladies without speaking a word, and, after briefly surveying them and their apartments, took up a newspaper from the table and continued to read it as long as he stayed.
Great. Now, I'm trying to remember his name. I know exactly who it is, but the name has momentarily forgotten me. If I describe the relationship, hopefully that will help.
Yeah.
This is Mrs. Jennings' daughter's husband.
Yes.
And it is... what's her name? Is it Charlotte? No.
Yeah, her name's Charlotte.
And his...
Mr. Palmer.
Palmer, that's right. I just couldn't remember their surname. But yes, I know it, Mr. Palmer.
Who is such a fucking savage. Oh my God.
So Hugh Laurie plays this character in the 1995 Sense and Sensibility film adaptation. And he does such a good job.
He's
of
basically
playing this,
like Dr. House, but like in Regency era.
Yeah, literally. He's just so disdainful of everybody, and he's just like, he's got this silly wife who he just mocks so like constantly, and he's just like, she just goes, oh, he's so droll.
He's so droll. Oh, he's so funny. He's always out of spirits.
He's always out of spirits. He always says all these horrible things to me.
And she's
because she just like can't. She just like is either unintelligent enough to not grasp that he is so rude to her, or she just like doesn't give a fuck.
I think it's a little bit of both. Like I think she just genuinely doesn't care.
Yeah,
it's so funny and like. Yeah, anyway, there's like this, I just want to read this bit before we move on to the next one. Then it's like, you know, they're talking about like, Sir John told me this, and you and Sir John, blah, 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 should not stand upon such ceremony. And Mr. Palmer goes, then you would be very ill-bred, saying that to Mrs. Jennings. And then Charlotte goes, my love, you contradict everybody, said his wife with her usual laugh. Do you know that you are quite rude? And then he said, I did not know I contradicted anybody in calling your mother ill-bred.
That is so
Jennings.
insane.
It's fucking savage. And then Mrs. Jennings replies, aye, you may abuse me as you please, said the good-natured old lady. You have taken Charlotte off my hands and cannot give her back again. So there I have the whip hand of you. So it's like, lol.
This family.
She might be dumb and so am I. But you married her,
You married her and you can't give her back.
Sorry. Anyway, great comic relief. He is fucking insane.
He's very funny. And like, he isn't helpful in any way, but you can tell it sometimes that he does, you know, does at least do his duty by his wife. Like when she has another kid and then Marianne gets sick in that household, he's like, all right, let's take them away to safety, like so they don't get ill either. And it's like,
well, he doesn't really want to go.
He doesn't want to go. She wants to go, and he's like, all right, fine. Yeah. But like, and he doesn't.
He's quite kind to the Dashwoods.
He's kind to the Dashwoods and isn't overall horrible, but he is. Again, caricaturized, but he isn't. Yeah, he's an asshole. He's just like realizes he married a stupid woman, but like has a decent life, so he kind of doesn't care. Like,
he's just like,
so he's so funny. All right, next one.
Next one. Okay, well, this might be a bit obvious then, but it's so funny. She was short and plump, had a very pretty face, and the finest expression of good humour in it that could possibly be. Her manners were by no means as elegant as her sisters, but they were much more prepossessing. She came in with a smile, smiled all the time of her visit, except when she laughed, and smiled when she went away.
She's just constantly smiling. It's Charlotte Palmer.
It's Charlotte Palmer.
I think it because it's like she's just jolly. She's and like
so jolly.
It feels like she is a carbon copy, like, of Mrs. Jennings, basically. And like she will be a Mrs. Jennings when she gets older. Yeah. And then her sister, who is Lady Middleton, is so different. Like she's kind of cold and like almost awkward. I just read her as like she's just kind of
she's also
down and
she's really dull.
Yeah,
like, all she does is talk about her kids who suck.
Her kids are horrible.
She's just always like, oh, I think we might get this kind of weather.
Yeah,
and it's like great, stimulating conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool.
But something mildly Freudian or whatever there because she marries a man who's very similar to Mrs. Jennings.
Exactly.
I fucking love Sir John.
I know. Sir John's so great. Funny. I often think like obviously Sir John could not have married Lady Mrs. Jennings, but like they're such a good match compared to Sir John and Lady Middleton. But anyway, Sir John's great.
A Sir John quote that I want to read really quickly because I didn't put him in here, but I feel like it perfectly captures him. Okay, so Sir John is basically super boisterous and he always wants people to like come to his house and he's always organising some kind of party. He just makes
friends everywhere he goes.
Yeah, and he can't be alone.
Yeah,
like he's so extroverted, he has to have people around all the time. Anyway, so it's like some cousins are coming to visit and it says that Sir John wanted the whole family to walk to the park directly and look at his guests. Benevolent, philanthropic man. It was painful to him even to keep a third cousin to himself. And this is his dialogue and he goes, do come now, he said. Pray come. You must come. I declare you shall come. You can't think how you will like them. It's just this. He's like, please. He's just like,
please come see my family. They're just the best.
They're so amazing.
Yeah, and it makes sense why
so
like he kind of wrote to the Dashwoods kind of out of the blue, being like, oh, come live at my house. Like, it'll be great. And you'll visit with us every night. You can dine with us and you can use our carriage and all this sort of stuff.
He's just so
generous. And yeah.
Love him. All right, next one. This is a woman. She is described as having, quote, considerable beauty. Her features were pretty, and she had a sharp, quick eye and a smartness of air, which, though it did not give actual elegance or grace, gave distinction to her person.
Oh my goodness. This is tricky.
There's some clues there. So she's very,
very pretty.
Very pretty.
But she's elegant and graceful.
No. She has a sharp, quick eye and a smartness of air. It doesn't give her elegance or grace, but it does make her a bit distinguished. It just gives her distinction.
Oh, okay, so I'm immediately ruling out Lucy Steele and Miss Steele. Oh no, is it Lucy Steele? No,
it's Lucy Steele.
It's Lucy Steele? Okay, because I was going to rule her out because she's just like so annoying. But yeah, okay, that was okay, great.
But she's
Lucy Steele.
artful.
Yeah, she is.
She's calculating, and the clue there is the sharp, quick eye. She's always looking around for who she can
manipulate
flatter and manipulate, and you know, and her power is not in the fact that she's, you know, rich and has status, but she's beautiful and she can flatter people. And she says,
is that okay so far?
She gets them all in the palm of her hand. She's fucking like lives at the Dashwoods, Fanny and John, for a while. And with the Jenningses, like they're just obsessed with her. Yeah. And it's because she just tells them exactly what they want to hear, which is how amazing they are all the time.
Yep. Oh, she's horrible. She's just disgusting. Like so vile and manipulative to Eleanor particularly, and knows exactly what she's doing when she's like, oh, me and Edward are just like so in love, and look at the ring that I'm wearing, like, because that's a whole thing as well, like Edward has this ring.
It's so hard for me not to be together, and I gave him a ring with a lock of my hair, and perhaps you happen to see it.
Did you see it? Yeah, when Edward comes by with the ring on, they like the Dashwoods and Jenningses and everyone is like, oh my god, that's the colour of your hair, Eleanor, like did you give him some of your hair?
He's wearing a lock of your hair, you're obviously engaged.
You guys are engaged. Turns out no, it's Miss Steele's.
Just like God. Moral of the story, maybe like don't assume people are engaged
or into you even
until they've told you.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, like Lucy just sucks. Like I feel like there's so many quotes. There's some like really harsh, like Jane Austen narration of her character in there that is just like we don't really have time to read. But like, oh my god, she sucks so much.
Sucks. Yeah, she really does suck, and she's such an important character for the whole plot because she changes Eleanor's life, like and prospects completely when she realizes that it's Lucy that's engaged to Edward,
and she's the main cause of the distress for Eleanor that she then has to hide from Marianne and like all this sort of stuff. Oh. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
All right, so second last one, and this is a 2-for-1. This is describing two people, and this is how they feel when they meet each other.
Okay.
There was a kind of cold-hearted selfishness on both sides which mutually attracted them, and they sympathised with each other in an insipid propriety of demeanour and a general want of understanding.
Yes, I know who these two are, and but I am scared I'm going to get it wrong. I think one of them is Lady Middleton.
Yes.
And then I think the other one is Fanny Ferris. No, not Fanny Ferris. She was Fanny Ferris, but now Fanny Dashwood.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay!
So it's like when they finally meet towards the end of the novel, through the Miss Steeles and everybody's kind of mingling in London.
Yes, they're all in
stuff.
London. Yeah.
And I just love it. The cold-hearted selfishness on both sides, and they're like, we understand each other.
Like.
Yeah, very funny. And I just love the general want of understanding. They're both
they don't care
fucking dumb
about each other. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Now this is the last one, and it's a long one, but I think it may be one of the best character descriptions I've ever read of Jane Austen. So strap in. All right. This person is described as a, quote, little, thin woman, upright even to formality in her figure, and serious even to sourness in her aspect. Her complexion was sallow, and her features small, without beauty, and naturally without expression. But a lucky contraction of the brow had rescued her countenance from the disgrace of insipidity by giving it the strong characters of pride and ill nature. She was not a woman of many words, for, unlike people in general, she proportioned them to the number of her ideas. And of the few syllables that did escape her, not one fell to the share of Miss Dashwood, whom she eyed with the spirited determination of disliking her at all events.
Yep. This is Mrs. Ferris.
This is Mrs. Ferris. This is Edward's mother.
That's insane. Imagine encountering such a woman and being like, I'm so in love with your son. Like, not obviously not telling this woman this, but like just knowing I'm so in love with your son, and if we got married, you would be my mother-in-law, and you are just horrible. Like that last line there where it's like she eyed Miss Dashwood with something, whatever it was.
Spirited determination of disliking her at all events. Like she's like, determined to hate her. There's no way
she's going to see exactly. Like, oh my goodness. She's so insane.
It's just such a fucking sledge though of like she's not a woman of many words because she proportions her words to the number of her ideas. So again, this is just more creative ways for Jane Austen to call people dumb.
Do we have one more?
No,
that was it because it was a twofer.
Yay! Yay! Very good.
Well done. They are excellent characters. They
are
really
really good.
And it makes sense. It stood the test of time because these people they're not real. What? They're not real? Jane Austen lived and wrote these people having lived 200 plus years ago, and yet we can understand their motivations so well because she's captured the human, like the humanity of them, and that you know, circumstances change. We don't, you know, as women now, we can own property and have bank accounts and marry who we want, blah, blah, blah. And yet we still understand these situations that they're put in because the feelings that they are expressing and the suffering that they go through is universally understood.
That's
so
almost
good.
exactly what I wrote in my journal about what I think is so enduring about it.
Yeah.
Is because so much of the drama of Pride and Prejudice is more dictated by the manners and the customs of the time.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously that still plays a part here, but it's so much more driven by the characters and by their humanity, by their humanness, by their relationships and their faults and their strengths. And so it's like, no wonder this keeps hitting with audiences, because it's just a story about people falling in love and trying to find their way in the world. And it's just like, much more kind of universal in that aspect. It's so good.
Incredible.
Well, should we move on now, because we have yapped a lot against our better judgment. Let's talk now.
Yap? Wow.
I know, shocking.
Rare and
shocking portrait of us.
Unusual development.
Let's talk now about the romance and the intimacy. And normally we give spoilers that there's going to be graphic details or things, or like, there's none of that.
They don't even kiss. I think the most graphic close to that is when Colonel Brandon kisses
Eleanor's hand, and that's
just
in
friendship.
Yeah. No, that's it.
That's literally it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the romance now. We've already talked a lot about the major moments, but in terms of reading this as a romance book, how did you feel that the romance went? What was your sense of it? Did you enjoy it? And could we think of any tropes, romance tropes, to attribute onto it? Because my sense is that it's very different from your standard romance. So I'd love to hear you think about that.
I didn't read this as a romance. Like, I know it's a romance, and I kind of read it more as like classic literature or historical fiction with romance plots in it. But the romance is really not... the romance as we would understand it from a modern perspective is not central. It is much more about like what is keeping them apart for both Marianne and Colonel Brandon, and then for Eleanor and Edward. There are romantic moments, but it is... I don't quite know how to describe it. I wouldn't recommend this to a person saying this is a beautiful romance. It is. There are beautiful moments in it, and it is a lovely romance, and you get the love between these people. But in terms of like a modern understanding of a romance novel, this definitely doesn't fit that.
No.
And I was finding it really hard to find any tropes, because she's the OG.
Yeah, she's the OG.
She's not like writing based on tropes.
No.
She's writing stories about people. And, you know, these stories don't always follow like all these like set tropes. I did really like that, you know, Eleanor kind of gets her happy ending in the sense that she's with the person that she loves, has a secure like place in society and living, and you know, Edward he's a clergyman now, and you know, he's a devoted, steady husband to her, and it's just like that is the romantic fulfillment for the day.
Yeah,
like
the happily
as at
ever
the time
after.
of that she's writing in. Like, it's not necessarily that there's these like grand gestures, which I think is what's so interesting about Pride and Prejudice, because it's like there's some big grand gestures from Darcy and in that one. In this one there isn't really, apart from I guess Colonel Brandon in some ways, but like Edward doesn't pay a lot of money to save her family from anything, or you know,
the grandest gesture is that as soon as he's free of Lucy, he rides straight over to Barton Cottage and he's like, hi.
Yeah. Hey,
that's it.
Can we be together?
Love ya.
And it's actually in that way somewhat more realistic, where it's like, yeah, it's just these two people who fell in love and were finally able to be together and made it work. And yeah, that's really nice.
The thing with Jane Austen as well, again, running on her theme of like, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Like, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Like, Willoughby does a lot of grand gestures. He buys Marianne a horse. Like, he's, you know, tries to give her a horse. He's doing this. He, like, takes a lock of her hair. They're dancing rambunctiously all the time. Like, they're so public with their love and their expression of it. And that's not correct. And that's not real. There's no... And it's like, okay, it might be real in some sense of, like, his affections were stirred and his vanity was flattered. But that kind of affection, that kind of romance means nothing unless it's backed up with substance. And Edward is all substance and no expression. Yeah. Colonel Brandon is, like, all substance and minor bits of expression where he can and where he thinks it's appropriate. But, like, he doesn't even tell Marianne that he loves her. No. Like, it comes out when he's talking to Mrs. Dashwood, when he fetches her to bring her to Marianne when she's dying. Sick, and he's like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really upset because I'm super in love with your daughter. And she's like, oh my God, how lovely. So, like, yeah, there's just this real difference of, like, it's the flashiness and the ostentatiousness of it all and the big gestures that are actually not real. And I think we see that as well in Pride and Prejudice, that all of those grand gestures that he does, he doesn't want anyone to know about them.
Yeah, exactly.
He expressly does not want Lizzie to know. Because they're not for anyone else. They're him making amends for his mistakes. Yeah. And of course he might be thinking of her while he's doing it, but it's not for her and it's not for her to see. Yeah. And I think that that's a running theme. We see it all the time, you know? Yep. Oh, we're keeping Sarah up. And the only bit that I found as well where there could have been a bit more explicit romanciness is, like, basically when, like, Edward, like, all of the misunderstanding is just, like, discovered, and Edward's able to be like, so, like, I love you, let's be together. And it was that bit that you read before of, like, how soon he'd walked himself into the proper resolution of asking her, like, who can say, blah, blah, blah. But he certainly did. And it says, you know, how he expressed himself and how he was received, all the details need not be particularly told.
I know.
She
I was like, Jane, no, tell me exactly what he said. Did he get down on one knee? Did he say, I love you dearly?
Like, what's the speech?
What's the speech? How did he propose to her? Like, give me that detail. And she's like, nah.
Like, at least even in Pride and Prejudice, we get a speech from Darcy because it's part of the plot when he's like, so basically you're shit and you're poor and, like, I've tried to talk myself out of it, but I love you, so, like, marry me, baby.
And even at the end, it's such a romantic bit where he's like, tell me if your feelings and affections are or, like, your feelings from, you know, however long ago are unchanged, that I will be silent on this forever. Like, that's still such a romantic thing to say.
Yeah, but it's just like one line. He doesn't belabor the point. No. She gives him, like, a sentence. Yeah. And then she's like, and Lizzie told her that her affections were quite the opposite. Yeah. And then he smiled.
Jane, why are you not, like, give us something more. That was the only thing I didn't like from this book, actually, in my, like, little thing here. What did you like the least? I wanted more from the romances at the end. And I wanted less Willoughby, but that's just because we're meant to want less Willoughby. He sucks. But
he does.
I just was like, Jane, give me more. Like, it is the final pages of this book and you're giving me nothing.
Come on, dog. Yeah. And I just, like, this is after she's like, we don't really need to go into the details, and we're screaming. She goes, this only need be said, that when they all sat down to table at 4 o'clock, about 3 hours after his arrival, he had secured his lady, engaged her mother's consent, and was not only in the rapturous profession of the lover, but in the reality of reason and truth, one of the happiest of men.
I know, I liked that.
And it's, like, beautiful.
It's
but
really
you're like,
lovely. It's like, please, I liked that. And then I liked that he stays with them for, like, 2 weeks. It's like they're engaged, and he's like, yay, we're engaged, and they just get to hang out.
Be here now.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I liked this, but, like, oh, please just tell me what he said to propose. Anyway, that's the only thing.
Very different expression of the romance. And again, in a story like this where so much of it, at least for our FMC, she's in heartache and separation from him the whole time. Yeah. She gets this tiny little happiness at the end.
Exactly. But I like that we get, because most of the book has been focused on, I mean, you know, the quiet suffering of Eleanor and the very loud suffering of Marianne, and then at the end the most detail we get is for Eleanor and her happiness
situation
at the end, her marriage to Edward, which happens nice and quick after that. Like, they don't have to wait for really anything because Colonel Brandon has secured them a position on his property, and it's going to be fine, and they manage to get enough money to live on from Mrs. Ferrers, and, you know, all this stuff happens, and then it's just like a little side note basically, like, oh, and by the way, Marianne, after after a couple of years, she ends up with...
You know, she grew to
love.
Grew in her affection and esteem of him.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were very much together. And she's like, yeah, he is wonderful. And then it's interesting, the way it's talked about is not so much a romance, but of like harking back to the beginning of the book where Marianne is like, there's no such thing as second love. Like you marry once and first, and that's it. There are no such things as second attachments. Yeah. Which of course is stupid because she's the child of a second marriage. But like that's her stance that she goes into the story with, and why she like pities Colonel Brandon if he has loved and lost before, but like, well, that's his life is over. Yeah. You know, and then all this sort of stuff, and why she so then throws herself at Willoughby. But then, it ends. There is a beautiful line actually from Jane Austen where she says something about like, you know, Marianne Dashwood being born to a remarkable fate. Let me find it. Hang on. So this part. So this is all it says. This is actually like the second last page. Marianne Dashwood was born to an extraordinary fate. She was born to discover the falsehood of her own opinions and to counteract, by her conduct, her most favourite maxims. She was born to overcome an affection formed so late in life as at 17, and with no sentiment superior to strong esteem and lively friendship, voluntarily to give her hand to another. And that other, a man who had suffered no less than herself under the event of a former attachment, whom 2 years before she had considered too old to be married, and who still sought the constitutional safeguard of a flannel waistcoat. So like all these nice little hark-backs to the opening chapters and all these things, and Marianne is like, oh my God, like as if. And then she's like, actually, I really esteem and respect you. Yes. We have a great friendship. Yes. That's enough. I'm going to marry you. Yeah. And then she grows to love him as much as, or more than she ever loved Willoughby within the first couple of years of their being together. Yeah. It's a very, very different picture of romance.
Very clever.
Yeah.
So good.
So good. Okay, well, I feel like there's so much more we could say, but we probably need to wrap up. I found 2 Easter eggs, though.
Tell me.
Before we move on.
Yeah.
There was a mention of visiting the Westons. And I was like, oh my God, is this an Easter egg to Emma? But I actually don't think it is. It's just Jane Austen borrowing names and doing all sorts of stuff.
Okay, yes.
And then the other one, did you catch it? There was a mention of ennui.
I did catch the mention of ennui.
Did you see the ennui?
Yes, I was like, millennial ennui. Emmy's going to love this.
I was like, ennui! All right, so should we we've done a lot of great quotes. Are there any other favourites that you want to mention before we do our ratings?
Yes, I think this one, I could say many, but I think this one is quite funny to me. And it's about the ring that I think we talked about. There's a ring that Lucy's had. That Lucy had given to Edward when they were engaged with a lock of her hair in it. And so after Lucy has said to Edward, like she sends him a letter basically saying like, oh yeah, I don't think we're that connected anymore. And by the way, I'm married to your brother. So thanks, bye. And she does this little like PS at the end.
Oh yeah.
And it is so funny to me. It's about the ring. So this is Edward is showing this letter now to Eleanor after they've gotten engaged. And so the letter reads, and then there's this PS. I have burnt all your letters and will return your picture first opportunity. Please to destroy my scrawls, but the ring with my hair you are very welcome to keep.
She's so and Eleanor just like looks at it and is like, I don't even know what to say to that.
What do you even say? Like, please destroy. I've destroyed all your things, and like I'm married to someone else. But this
who is your brother, by the way.
But this keepsake of our love. Yeah, you can keep that.
Have it if you like.
It's just insane. She's ridiculous. I found that so funny.
This is one of my favourite ones. This is Eleanor is in conversation at some point, I forget why, with Robert Ferris, so Edward's younger brother who ends up marrying Lucy.
And I think we have the same one. This was my second one as well.
In the book I wrote, iconic line.
It's incredible. I think it is.
And they kept calling him a coxcomb, which is like which is what's called on like a rooster's head. So it's basically a name for like a showy, flashy man who's just like a bit stupid. Anyway, he says all this like stuff to Eleanor. He's just like talking to her about how much he loves cottages and like building cottages, and I would die for a cottage, and I advised my friend to build a cottage, and rah 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 rah. Anyway, it goes, Eleanor agreed to it all, for she did not think he deserved the compliment of rational opposition. I love that we both had that one. It's just like he said all this bonkers shit, and she's just like, I can't even. I'm not even going to respond because you don't even deserve that. What you just said was so dumb.
Yeah.
Did you have any others?
I did have more in here, but none that I've written down. So yes, no, go for it. Tell me what else you had.
Well, I had one more, and this was about, I think, when Eleanor and Marianne were preparing to leave for London. And this is just like another great capturing moment of Mrs. Dashwood's like sensibility as well as Marianne's. And they're like weeping and hugging and like, oh, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to miss you so much. And it says, her mother's affliction was hardly less than Marianne's. Marianne's like all over the place. Her mother's affliction was hardly less, and Eleanor was the only one of the three who seemed to consider the separation as anything short of eternal. Just like, we're not fucking going away forever, by the way.
Anything short of eternal.
God. And
my goodness, it's so witty. It's so brilliant.
It's so good.
Oh,
and then there was one great moment that I have to read, because the others were like Mr. Palmer that I've said.
Mr. Palmer's so funny.
But anyway, I think this is after they've moved to Barton Cottage. Edward comes to visit them and he's really out of spirits and they don't really know why. And we find out much later that he's gone via Plymouth, where Lucy Steele lives, and then he's come to Barton and is like, oh, it's really, really obvious to me how much I don't want to be engaged to that woman, and I really love Eleanor. And so he's just like in a bad mood the whole time. Anyway, and so Marianne and Eleanor are trying to talk to him and like get information out of him of like, how's Norland, how's London, how's this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then Marianne's like, oh, how does dear Norland look? And Eleanor's like, probably much the same as it always does. The woods and walls thickly covered with dead leaves. And then she goes, oh, cried Marianne, with what transporting sensations have I formerly seen them fall? How have I delighted as I walk to see them driven in showers about me by the wind? What feelings have they, the season, the air altogether inspired? Now there is no one to regard them. They are seen only as a nuisance, swept hastily off and driven as much as possible from the sight. And then this is the line. It is not everyone, said Eleanor, who has your passion for dead leaves. It's just like she gives this huge fucking speech about the leaves, and Eleanor's
got a
like,
monologue, Emma's.
yes, no, like not everyone cares about the leaves. Like, shush. Ugh, God.
I love it. I love them. It's so funny.
It's so good.
It's really good. Okay.
All right. So we give our ratings. Oh, wait, I forgot. We were previously talking about tropes in the romance. The only ones I could think of, second chance romance.
Second chance.
And did you have one?
I had age gap.
Age gap.
Between Marianne and Colonel Brandon.
That's kind of it.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you guys can think of any other tropes that fit into Sense and Sensibility, let us know. But I couldn't think of any. But age gap and...
Forced proximity, maybe?
Forced proximity would fit.
You can kind of say that for any story, really. At some point, they're forced to take, to spend time together in some place. But yeah, there you go. It's untropable.
You could even do like hate to lovers with Marianne and Colonel Brandon. But it's not like true hate. It's not true because Colonel Brandon never hates Marianne. It's just Marianne is
disdain.
Like, you're so old.
You're so old.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, ratings.
All right, so here are our ratings. What is your overall spice rating, my friend?
A 0.
Yeah, there's no spice. It has to be 0.
There's nothing.
0 spiciness. It doesn't exist. Yep, same for me.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it's not romantic, but yeah, it's
there's
more
literally no spice at all.
Overall book rating out of 5?
I've given it a 4.5.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty high. I think... the only reason I've knocked that half off is just because I was like, give me more of the romance. But I'm aware that is not Jane Austen's style. So it's not like a negative thing in it by any means. But I think there are some books where I'm like, oh, that just really hit me, or like that fed my soul in a way, or it was just the romance was so beautiful. Those I'll give 5 stars. But 4.5, yeah, she's just brilliant.
She's so good.
It is such a good book.
It's very good.
What about you?
I mean, it's got to be a
5.
It's a 5 out of 5 because it's Jane Austen.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm being like really seriously, and if I'm like ranking them compared to the others, it's probably 4.5 as well. Because I love it. I think it does something really different to Pride and Prejudice. I appreciate those differences, and I think the characters are better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not as fun to read as P&P is.
It's just a bit sadder.
Yeah,
overall.
it's sad. It's deeply affecting. And I just love. Again, Colonel Brandon's backstory is one of the best stories, like stories within a stories that I've ever read. And I just think that's it's really incredible. So in my heart, I want to give it 5 out of 5, and I probably still will. But 4 out of 5 also makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. All right. Would you reread this book?
Yes, already have. This is probably my 4th reread of it. Would you?
I think yes, but I think I need some time.
Yeah. Because it's genre and a language that is like, it's a bit tricky to get into, especially if you're not used to reading this type of stuff. So it does take a little while.
But I literally was just thinking in my head just now, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a reread of P&P, audiobook it, just for fun, like just to analyze it, just to listen to it again, because it's so funny. So I think it's the sort of thing where I would just be like, oh, let's pop an audiobook on. Let's just listen to P&P or Sense and Sensibility. Yeah. Yep.
Would you read more from this author then?
Yeah, I think I'd like to keep going with reading. I'd like to get to have read all of them.
What do you want to do next? Do you have an inkling?
I think I want to try Emma, because I really do enjoy the adaptations that you showed me, the proper one, the
2007 BBC telly series, 4-part episode starring Romola Garai.
Yes, that's exactly the one.
2007. Hang on,
it's really good.
It might be 2009.
It's fine. Early 2000s.
It's 2009, guys.
2009.
It's 2009.
I've watched that one. Amy and I watched it in one go. Do you remember?
Iconic.
Oh my God. That was only like 2 months ago or something that we sat down and we just watched that. That was incredible. It's so good. And I have seen the 2019, I think.
2020, yeah.
Or 2020.
With Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy. That one was
fun
good.
And pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've seen those. I do enjoy Emma. I think that would be my next one.
So good.
Yeah. But if they make another adaptation, maybe we'll just have to read whichever one that is.
Yeah, true. Whichever will be next.
Yeah.
God.
Anywho's, would you
the only one would be Northanger that they haven't done.
True.
And it never really gets much attention. Yeah, they're always redoing the others.
Yeah.
Give us more Northanger, I say.
Would you recommend this to your mother?
Or recommend to a friend or your mother? Or would I read more from this author?
Would you read more from this author? Would you read again over and over?
Yes.
Everything else from Jane? Yes.
Everything she's ever touched, breathed on, sniffed. Perfect. Yes. Done. Would you recommend it to a friend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would. I mean, it's just a classic. It's a classic for a reason. It's good. It's going to hold up.
Would you recommend it to your mother?
Yeah, I think she's probably read it. I haven't checked, but
no doubt.
Probably.
She probably even studied it in school or something. Like, you know, this is the thing. Like, Jane Austen is ubiquitous. She's just everywhere. And it's more like...
Your mum's read it, surely.
Oh, yeah, mum's read it. She would read it again. She loves the adaptations. Lots of my friends have read it. And, I guess it's more... one of those books that you might need to convince someone that has like a certain opinion about classics or like a certain opinion about 19th century literature that they're just like, it's probably really boring. And it's like, no, it's actually so good.
Fascinating. Yeah. So good.
Perfect. Oh, well, there we go. Another Austen
brings us to the end of this one.
In the books.
Hell yes.
Oh, so good.
Now we get to add Colonel Brandon to our next round of book boyfriend battle.
And you know what? Like, it's like always really hard for me when I've been doing the Austen book boyfriend battle in my head.
Yeah.
I love Colonel Brandon. And if I try to compare him to Darcy, it's hard.
It's a really hard comparison.
So it's kind of good that he wasn't in that previous episode because...
You might have combusted.
I may have done. Add Mr. Knightley in there and it's just like,
I think that's why I want to read Emma, because I just really love Mr. Knightley.
I think he's my number one.
I think he is... He's really hot.
He's so hot. He's so amazing.
I think, we've got to do Emma at some point.
We've got to do Emma.
Yeah. All right. That's settled it. It's definitely Emma next.
Perfect.
Well, keep an eye out for what we're reading next. It probably won't be Emma. I think it's going to be...
No, we probably need a bit of a break. But maybe we might not stray too far from the Regency era, as we know we are living through a bit of a period drama revival at the moment.
Excellent.
So, like, I don't know, maybe we could try and find something that is a contemporary romance that's very tropeable, but maybe tries to borrow some of Jane Austen's like style or characters. We could see if we could
a comparison.
Yeah, can it exist in the modern form?
Excellent.
So make sure you're following us on Instagram. We're also on TikTok occasionally.
Allegedly.
And you can watch us on YouTube, all at Historical Romance Review. Instagram is where we'll be putting out our spoilers, or not spoilers, teasers,
free teaser,
for the next book that we're going to read, for the next State of the Field. So keep up with us there and let us know your thoughts on Sense and Sensibility. And really, if you can think of a trope, would be helpful, I think. But until next time, happy reading.
Happy reading, fellow Jane Austen lovers.
Yay! We love Jane Austen.
Historical Romance Review is written, recorded and produced in Meanjin, Brisbane. All editing is done by Sarah Brain, original artwork by Caitlin Adams, original theme music composed by Johnny Barahona, who you can follow on Instagram at JohnnyNvivo, spelt JohnnyEnvivo. Sound support is provided by Zach Costa and recording equipment and guidance generously provided by John Ward. Thank you to everyone who continues to support this project with their expertise and enthusiasm. You can find all our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.